Before there was Archimedes, before the genius of Syracuse electrified the ancient world with his theorems and his war machines and his legendary cry of Eureka, there was another man, a man who lived a century before Archimedes was even born. A man who climbed the steps of Plato's academy with nothing but raw intellect and a burning hunger to understand the universe. A man who, with no telescope, no calculator, no modern mathematics, calculated the size of the earth and mapped the movements of the heavens with staggering accuracy. His name was Eudoxus of Cnidus, and without him, there may never have been an Archimedes. Welcome back to Numbers and Narratives by Blesswright, the channel where history's greatest mathematical and scientific minds come alive, where the numbers tell stories, and the stories change everything you thought you knew. If you are new here, welcome. You are in the right place. Subscribe right now and hit the notification bell, because every single video on this channel is a journey you do not want to miss. Today we are going deep into the ancient world, into sun-scorched Greece and the dusty corridors of Egypt's greatest intellectual institutions, to unearth the life and legacy of Eudoxus of Cnidus. And I promise you this, stay with us until the very end, because there is a striking detail about this man's legacy, something that most history books gloss over, that will genuinely surprise you. It connects Eudoxus to one of the most pivotal moments in the entire history of mathematics. Do not leave early. The ancient city of Cnidus sat at the southwestern tip of what is now modern Turkey, a peninsula jutting boldly into the Aegean Sea, battered by Mediterranean winds, alive with the smell of salt and fish and commerce. It was a prosperous Greek city-state, a place of traders and sailors, not particularly known for producing mathematicians. And yet, sometime around 408 BCE, a boy was born there who would one day stand among the greatest intellects of antiquity. His name, Eudoxus. The ancient sources tell us that Eudoxus came from modest means. His family was not wealthy. He was not born into privilege. But from a very young age, he showed a mind that simply could not stop asking questions. Questions about shapes, about numbers, about the stars overhead. So he studied mathematics and medicine in Cnidus, medicine being one of the practical, respectable disciplines of the day. But his mathematical hunger was not satisfied by local instruction. He heard whispers of a place in Athens where the greatest minds of the age gathered, a place called Plato's Academy. So, still a young man, the ancient historian Diogenes Laertius records that he was around 20 years old. Eudoxus scraped together what little money he had and made the voyage to Athens. He could not afford lodging in the city itself. He settled in the nearby port town of Piraeus, walking several miles each day to attend Plato's lectures, then walking back again in the evening. Let that image sink in. Every single day on foot, miles there, miles back, because the love of knowledge demanded it. And this was not a man-handed opportunity. This was a man who seized it with bare hands. After his time at Plato's Academy, Eudoxus did something remarkable. He did not stay in the comfortable intellectual circles of Athens. He went east. He went to Egypt. Around 380 BCE, with letters of introduction reportedly secured through Plato's connections, Eudoxus traveled to Heliopolis, one of Egypt's great religious and astronomical centers. There he studied alongside Egyptian priests who had been recording celestial observations for centuries, possibly millennia. Think about what that meant. The Egyptians had been watching the sky systematically for generations. They had accumulated data, raw, meticulously recorded astronomical data, that the Greeks were only beginning to engage with seriously. Eudoxus absorbed it all. He reportedly spent 16 months in Egypt, an extraordinary commitment. The ancient writer Strabo records that people in Heliopolis would point out, generations later, the very house where Eudoxus had lived and the observatory where he had worked. He came back from Egypt transformed. He returned to Cnidus, established his own school, gathered his own students. He later also spent time in Cyzicus, another Greek city on the Sea of Marmara, where his school flourished. He visited Plato again in Athens. By now he was not a student seeking scraps of wisdom. He was a peer. Some ancient sources suggest that Plato himself deeply respected Eudoxus, though their philosophical differences were real. And then Eudoxus went to work. He produced a body of intellectual output that, for its time, was almost incomprehensibly ambitious. And now we get to the heart of it, the mathematical contribution that would echo through the centuries and land like a bolt of lightning in the hands of Archimedes of Syracuse. The problem facing Greek mathematicians in the 4th century BCE was this. How do you calculate the area or volume of a curved shape? A square? Straightforward. A rectangle? Easy. Even a triangle. Euclidean geometry handles these with clarity. But a circle? A sphere? A cone? These shapes have curves, and curves were terrifying to the ancient mathematical mind. Because the ancient Greeks demanded proof. Not approximation, not estimation, proof. And Eudoxus gave them the tool to do it. He developed what we now call the method of exhaustion. Here is the core idea. And pay attention, because this is genuinely beautiful. If you want to find the area of a circle, you inscribe a polygon inside it, then a polygon with more sides, then more, then more. As the number of sides increases, the polygon's area gets closer and closer to the circle's area. It exhausts the difference between itself and the circle. You never actually reach the circle, but you can prove that the difference between the polygon and the circle becomes smaller than any quantity you care to name. And from that, through rigorous logical argument, you can derive the true area. This is not approximation. This is not guesswork. This is a controlled, formal, logically airtight approach to the infinite. And Eudoxus constructed it without algebra, without calculus, without any of the symbolic mathematical tools we take for granted today. He did it with pure geometric logic and iron discipline of thought. Scholars today widely credit Eudoxus with being the first to put this method on rigorous footing. Euclid, who came after Eudoxus, preserved and transmitted several of Eudoxus's results in his Elements, particularly in Book 5, The Theory of Proportion, and Book 12, Volumes of Three-Dimensional Figures. The Theory of Proportions in Book 5 is almost universally attributed by modern historians to Eudoxus. Book 12 of the Elements uses the method of exhaustion to prove rigorously that the areas of circles are proportional to the squares of their diameters, a result credited to Eudoxus. The volumes of pyramids, cones, and spheres, all handled via Eudoxus's approach. And then along came a child born in Syracuse, Sicily, around 287 BCE, roughly 80 years after Eudoxus was at his intellectual peak. His name was Archimedes. And Archimedes is, by almost any measure, the greatest mathematician of antiquity. Some would argue he is the greatest mathematician of the ancient world, full stop. His work on the area of a circle, the surface area and volume of a sphere, the properties of the spiral. These are achievements that would not be surpassed for nearly 2,000 years. But here is what most people do not fully appreciate. Archimedes built on Eudoxus. Consciously, deliberately. He said so himself. In his letter to Eratosthenes, known today as the Method of Mechanical Theorems, Archimedes explicitly credits Eudoxus for having proved the theorems about the volumes of the cone and pyramid. He writes that Eudoxus deserves no small credit for being the first to prove these results rigorously. This is not secondhand attribution by later historians. This is Archimedes himself, the titan of ancient mathematics, acknowledging his predecessor's foundational role. And then Archimedes took the method of exhaustion and supercharged it. Where Eudoxus laid the rigorous foundation, proved that you could use the method, establish the logical framework, Archimedes wielded it with extraordinary creative brilliance. He used the method to calculate that the area of a circle is equal to pi times the radius squared. He proved that the volume of a sphere is 2/3 the volume of a circumscribed cylinder, a result he was so proud of that, according to the ancient biographer Plutarch, he asked for a sphere inscribed in a cylinder to be carved on his tomb. But Archimedes also went beyond Eudoxus in a critical way. He developed what he called his own mechanical method, using physical intuition about balance and levers to discover results, which he then proved rigorously using exhaustion. He was explicit that this was a method of discovery, not of proof. The proof still required Eudoxus's framework. The relationship between these two men, separated by nearly a century, is one of the most important intellectual inheritances in all of mathematics. We cannot talk about Eudoxus without talking about astronomy. because this is where he also left a mark of extraordinary ambition. Drawing on what he had learned in Egypt and his own systematic observations, Eudoxus constructed the first known mathematical model of the motion of the heavens. He proposed what is now called the theory of homocentric spheres, a model in which the Earth sits at the center of the cosmos and the Sun, Moon, and 5 known planets each move on a set of concentric spheres, all sharing the same center, each sphere rotating on a different axis at a different speed. This was the first serious mathematical attempt to explain the observed motions of the planets, including the baffling phenomenon of retrograde motion, where planets appear from Earth to slow down, stop, and briefly move backward across the sky before resuming their forward motion. Eudoxus explained this apparent backward motion through the interaction of 2 spheres rotating in opposite directions, producing a figure-8-shaped curve that he called the hippopede, meaning horse fetter. It was a geometric solution to an astronomical problem, exactly the kind of thinking that defined his genius. Was the model ultimately correct? No, it was geocentric, Earth-centered, and later superseded by the heliocentric model of Copernicus and Galileo. But for its time, it was breathtaking. Aristotle adopted it, modifying it for his own purposes. It shaped Greek astronomical thinking for generations. Eudoxus also produced a star catalog and a work called Phenomena, a description of the constellations, which so impressed the poet Aratus that he turned it into a verse poem of the same name. That poem was read and admired across the Greek and Roman worlds for centuries. Here is something that goes deeper than most people realize. Before Eudoxus, Greek mathematics was in something of a crisis. So the Pythagoreans had discovered, to their horror, that not all numbers are rational, that the diagonal of a unit square could not be expressed as a ratio of whole numbers. This discovery of what we now call irrational numbers shook the very foundations of Greek mathematical thought, because the Greeks had based their entire theory of proportion on the assumption that all magnitudes could be expressed in terms of whole number ratios. Eudoxus fixed this. He developed a new, completely general theory of proportion, one that worked for both rational and irrational magnitudes. His definition of when 2 ratios are equal is recorded in Book 5 of Euclid's Elements, and it is a masterpiece of logical precision. Here, in simplest terms, is the key idea. 2 ratios A to B and C to D are equal if, for any whole numbers m and n, whenever ma is greater than nb, then mc is greater than nd, and vice versa, and similarly for equality and lesser than. This definition is so sophisticated or so logically robust that when the 19th century German mathematician Richard Dedekind developed his famous Dedekind cuts to rigorously define irrational numbers, he essentially rediscovered the same idea that Eudoxus had formulated more than 2,000 years earlier. 2,000 years. Eudoxus had solved a foundational problem of mathematics that would not be fully revisited and independently resolved until the 19th century. What kind of man was Eudoxus? The ancient sources paint a picture of someone remarkable not just for his intellect but for his character. He was known for his extraordinary memory. He was a physician as well as a mathematician and astronomer. The breadth of his knowledge was staggering. He reportedly wrote on geography, constructing a work called Tour of the Earth, or Hesperiodos, one of the earliest systematic geographical texts of the Greek world. He also wrote on philosophy and ethics, though most of these works are lost. Aristotle discusses Eudoxus's ethical views in the Nicomachean Ethics, noting that Eudoxus argued pleasure was the highest good, not because he was self-indulgent, but because he reasoned carefully from first principles. Aristotle, in fact, found his arguments persuasive precisely because of Eudoxus's moral reputation. This was a man whose lifestyle gave the lie to any charge of hedonism. He was trusted, respected, admired. Diogenes Laertius records that when Eudoxus returned to Cnidus from his travels, the city received him with extraordinary honors. He gave laws to the citizens of Cnidus, serving, it seems, not just as a scholar, but as a civic leader, a lawgiver in the tradition of ancient Greek sages. He died around 355 BCE, aged approximately 53. Not an old man, not nearly enough time. And yet, in 53 years, he transformed astronomy, healed a crisis at the foundations of mathematics, developed a method that Archimedes would use to change the world, and wrote on geography, ethics, and philosophy. He founded schools, he taught students, he corresponded with the greatest minds of his age. 53 years. Now, as promised, here is the detail that will surprise you. We know that Archimedes acknowledged Eudoxus. We know that Euclid preserved his work, but here is what is almost never mentioned. The method of exhaustion that Eudoxus developed, this engine of mathematical rigor that Archimedes used, is functionally equivalent to the concept of a limit in modern calculus. When Isaac Newton and Gottfried Leibniz independently invented calculus in the 17th century, nearly 2,000 years after Eudoxus, the central concept they introduced was the limit, the idea that you could make a quantity approach but never quite reach another quantity and derive exact results from that process. Eudoxus had the same idea. He did not have the notation, he did not have the algebra. He could not generalize it into the full machinery of differential and integral calculus the way Newton and Leibniz did, but the core conceptual insight, the controlled approach to the infinite, the logical extraction of exact results from an infinite process, that insight was Eudoxus's, 2,000 years before calculus. The great 20th century mathematician and historian of mathematics Wilbur Knorr, who devoted much of his career to ancient Greek mathematics, wrote extensively about the debt that Archimedes, and by extension all of modern analysis, owes to Eudoxus. And there is something even more extraordinary in this. Archimedes' work, which built directly on Eudoxus, was itself the inspiration that Cavalieri, Torricelli, Wallis, and others used in the 16th and 17th centuries to develop the methods that directly preceded Newton and Leibniz. So the chain runs. Eudoxus to Archimedes to Renaissance mathematicians to Newton and Leibniz to modern calculus to every bridge, every aircraft, every smartphone, every scientific advance that depends on continuous mathematics. Every time you use GPS navigation, every time an engineer calculates the stress on a beam, every time a physicist models the trajectory of a satellite, there is a thread that runs all the way back to a young man from Cnidus, walking miles to Plato's academy because he could not afford to live in Athens, but refused to let poverty stand between him and the stars. History is rarely a story of lone geniuses. It is a story of torches passed, of one brilliant mind reaching forward into the dark and lighting a flame that another brilliant mind, decades or centuries later, will catch and carry further than the first could have imagined. Eudoxus of Cnidus never knew Archimedes. He died decades before Archimedes was born. He could not have foreseen that his method of exhaustion would be wielded to calculate the value of pi, to determine the volume of a sphere, to lay the groundwork for the calculus that would eventually power the modern world. But the torch passed, and that is the extraordinary thing about great ideas. They do not die with their creators. They outlive them. They travel. They find new hands. They grow. Eudoxus gave mathematics something it desperately needed, a way to think rigorously about the infinite, about curved shapes, about magnitudes that could not be tamed by simple whole number ratios. He gave the world, in other words, a new way to think about reality itself. Oh, and then Archimedes picked it up and ran. If you never heard the name Eudoxus of Cnidus before today, I hope you will not forget it, because this man, this poor boy from a windy peninsula on the edge of the Aegean, who walked miles in the dust of Athens for the love of knowledge, he helped shape the mathematical foundations of the world you are living in right now. And that deserves to be remembered. If this story moved you, if it opened your eyes to a name history had kept from you, then do one thing right now. Hit that like button, share this video with someone who loves history, mathematics, or the story of human genius, and subscribe to Numbers and Narratives by Bless Wright. Because every week we bring you stories like this one. Stories of the people history forgot, the ideas that changed everything, and the numbers that hold the universe together. The next video is already on its way. You do not want to miss it. Until then, keep asking questions, keep following the numbers, and remember, every great discovery begins with someone who simply refused to stop wondering. Take care, God bless, and I will see you in the next one.